Hello, boys and girls. I hope everybody's doing well today. It is an absolutely beautiful day yet again. And as always, I hope everybody's staying healthy and safe. Um, and I miss you all. Um, and uh, it's just it's been quite the year. I mean, who would have imagined that this is how our year would end together? But you know, um, before you know it, we will all be together again. Um, and we'll look back on this time together. But in the meantime, um, for today's topic, I thought we would do something a little bit different. Much different, actually. We're going to be talking about something called musicals. Now, some of you may have heard of what a musical is, and some of you may be like, well, a musical? Well, what's a musical? I've never heard of such a thing called a musical. And if you have, great. If you haven't, well, you're going to find out today. All right. Oh, and don't worry, there are no assignments with this topic. Just sit back, relax, and enjoy. And I promise you, this will be, well, this will be something you're really going to enjoy. All right, here we go. It's a musical. Here we go. So, how many of you know what a musical is or have seen a musical before? I bet you might be surprised. And you know why I say that? Because a musical is like a play. If you've ever gone to a play, everybody talks during a play, right? Usually there's some talking and people move around and there's some kind of action involved. But in a musical, people break up the talking with songs, some dancing. Um, Usually you'll laugh, you usually cry, you cheer, you sing. Um, Musicals are plays that have music in them. That's why they're called musicals. And the songs, they usually tell you what everybody's feeling, or you're thinking about, or I don't know, explaining what's going on. That's usually what the music's there. It always has a job to do. It's never just there to listen. But sometimes the music in a musical is just catchy. Like doe, a deer, a female deer, ray, a drop of golden sun. From The Sound of Music. I think everybody knows that song, right? Well, sometimes those kind of songs are just fun to listen to. Even though they have a role, they're catchy. So, here's some musicals you probably, maybe have heard of. The Wizard of Oz. That one's a movie. It's a very old movie. It's about 80, maybe 80 years old now. Um, Mary Poppins was a movie first, and now it's a musical. Well, first it was a book, then it was a movie, then it was a musical. Wicked, The Sound of Music, Fiddler on the Roof. Um, I'm sure there might be a couple others that you may know of. Um, if you saw Mr. Mouseand last year, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, I was in that one, and a few others in our school were in that show. So that was one. The Music Man, Bye Bye Birdie. There's quite a few up here that you might know. I'm curious. Hmm. We'll have to talk about these when we go back to school. Here are some others that I came up with. And there's actually hundreds of musicals that have come out. This is just a small list. I mean, but there are tons and tons of them. High School Musical, that one was a movie musical first, and then it went on stage. So sometimes musicals just go right to the movies. Like La La Land, that one's what we call a movie musical. Um, The Greatest Showman, that one's also called a movie musical. That one's, mostly it's spoken not, but it's spoken, but then there's music that breaks up, right? Um, so these are all great musicals. Broadway. It got its start around 1750. So how did Broadway, which is where a lot of musicals kind of get their start, get how did Broadway show up? Well, Broadway, which is in New York City, and there's also a Broadway, there's actually a couple different kinds of Broadways. There's a Broadway in New York City, and then there's a Broadway, they call it West End in London. But Broadway itself started in New York City in 1750 with two guys, Thomas Keene and his brother Walter Keene. They started up a small little theater group in New York City. And then they had only 280 seats. But then, after that theater became popular, another theater was built. And it had 2,000 seats. And then another theater started popping up. And then another. And then another. And eventually, they started popping up everywhere. Like daisies. That's a line from a movie. By the middle of the 1800s, musicals started really showing up. And they weren't musicals like you see now. They're kind of different. So you're probably wondering, well, what did the original musical look like, Mr. Mouse? And, well, that's actually a really good question. Musicals back then, in the 1800s, which you have to remember was 200 years ago, they were a bit different. They were made a little bit differently. They weren't kind of organized as the way we think of them, but they were still written very well, and they were very popular. But I'll do a little more digging because I'm still trying to find that out myself. So, all right, so let's listen to some Broadway. Here we go. Let's go with The Sound of Music. That's one of my personal favorites.
Raindrops on roses and whiskers on kittens.
Maybe you've heard this one around Christmas time.
And warm woolen mittens, brown paper packages tied up with strings. These are a few of my favorite things. Cream-colored ponies and crisp apple strudels, doorbells and sleigh bells and schnitzel with noodles, wild geese that fly with the moon on their wings. These are a few of my favorite things. Girls in white dresses with blue satin sashes, snowflakes that stay on my nose and eyelashes, silver white winters that melt into springs. These are a few of my favorite things. When the dog bites, when the bee stings, when I'm feeling sad, I simply remember my favorite things, and then I don't feel so bad.
So that was from The Sound of Music. Again, what a great, great show. It's one of my favorite musicals. And here's some others that you might recognize right away. This is from Cinderella.
Full of zanies and fools who don't believe in sensible rules and won't believe what sensible people say. And because these daft and dewy don't see people eating up impossible, help impossible, things are happening every day.
This next one is from... This one's from Anastasia.
Things my heart still needs to know. Yes, let this be.
I actually saw this one when it came to the city of Schenectady, and it's a really great show. This is from Finding Neverland. This is from West Side Story. This is probably one your parents might have grown up with, or maybe you've seen. This is a great one. This is a story. It's kind of like the story of Romeo and Juliet, but it's written during our time. Well, it's supposed to be based on our time. Trying to find a good one. Oh, this is from Newsies. Right. So, that is from Newsies. So, these are just some examples of musicals that I wanted to show you. Musicals are just a fun way for everybody to just go out and a lot of times people go out to these musicals. They make a big night of it. People sometimes get dressed up. Sometimes they don't. You usually go out and get tickets beforehand. You usually don't go by yourself, but sometimes you do. And you usually... they're usually broken up into what we call acts. So there's usually a first act and a second act. And then in those acts, a musical is broken up into scenes and then songs in those scenes. So it's kind of fun to watch musicals because, like I said, musicals can go from really serious to really silly, to really sad, to really angry, to really happy again, and everything in between. And I love musicals. I've been going to musicals since I was around your age. So, so that's all I have for today. If you have a favorite musical, you know, I encourage you to, watch one at home sometime with your parents because musicals are just a great way to relax and just have fun with the with um, with plays and stories. So, all right. I hope you're having a great week, and I look forward to talking with you soon. Take care.